Picture this. Your team is trapped in a windowless conference room. The air is totally stale, and the tension is, well, it's palpable. You've got three solid options on the table for solving a critically important problem. But instead of picking one, what does the team do? They schedule another meeting, and then they request just a little bit more analysis. And then, you guessed it, they schedule yet another meeting. They are endlessly postponing the actual choice, basically just waiting for some magical feeling of total certainty to wash over them before they pull the trigger.
It's a classic case of the endless meeting loop. Just imagine this highly stressed team stuck on a metaphorical treadmill. They are sweating, they're exhausted, and they're constantly requesting more data, more opinions, and more analysis without ever actually moving forward. They're completely trapped in a cycle of analysis paralysis, essentially confusing just being busy with making actual progress.
Until eventually, someone in that exhausted room raises their hand and asks one simple, piercing question. What information are we waiting for that would actually change our decision? What's so fascinating about this question is how it literally shatters the team's analysis paralysis in an instant. It demands concrete relevance. It forces everyone to realize that the extra data they're so desperately searching for probably won't change the outcome at all. It's really just a shield to protect them from the discomfort of having to make a choice.
So, let's dive into how we can actually break that cycle, starting with our first key idea. Number 1, know your decision authority.
Before you can make a good choice, you absolutely have to understand the boundaries of what you are actually allowed to decide. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you could have an employee who just wasted 3 whole days sitting around waiting for a manager's approval. But on the flip side, what if they realized that this specific task was actually something they were already authorized to handle themselves? Clarifying in advance which categories of decisions you can make on your own and which actually require escalation prevents you from overstepping. But honestly, more importantly, it prevents you from freezing up.
The big takeaway here is really quite simple. Knowing your organizational guidelines and policies actually frees you up. When you know your own constraints and your boundaries, you can move so much more quickly and confidently within your own lane. No more second-guessing yourself or waiting around for totally unnecessary sign-offs. Moving right along to step 2, define the decision. Once you know you actually have the authority, you've got to be crystal clear about what needs to be decided right this second. Instead of trying to solve the entire landscape of a problem all at once, you need to literally prune away those abstract future features. So rather than spending hours endlessly debating what a product might need, say 3 years down the line, just ask, which option should we prototype first? By pruning away the distant future and focusing entirely on the very next actionable step, you create immediate forward momentum. You strip away layers of totally unnecessary complexity. Which tees up our third idea perfectly. Number 3. Use relevant information.
Your goal here is to gather enough objective evidence to make a sound choice without falling into the trap of endless data collection. So instead of compiling a massive, unlimited dossier on every single supplier in the world, a team could just compare 3 providers against 3 agreed-upon criteria. Let's say cost, delivery speed, and quality score. Honestly, that is all they need. By deliberately using objective data within a closed set of criteria, they completely bypass the noise and the bias. They make a clear, fact-based choice without wasting weeks of time.
But why is this kind of speed so absolutely crucial? Well, that brings us to the concept of opportunity costs. When you're evaluating your alternatives, you have to remember the hidden penalty here. We're talking about the resources, the money, and the time lost while you delay a choice just to gather more relevant data. Choosing to wait is in itself a decision, and it is often a very expensive one. The time you spend trying to perfectly analyze a problem is time you could have spent actively solving it. And that leads us right into our fourth key idea. Number 4. Decisions don't have to be perfect.
Look, the reality is that risk and uncertainty are just permanent parts of the decision-making process. If you aim for absolute certainty, you are literally never going to finish. Think about the 80-20 rule. You want to act on a reasonable solution once you have 80% of the actionable information, while actively embracing that 20% of acceptable uncertainty. Doing something almost always trumps indecision. By settling for a good enough option based on your criteria, you actually capture the opportunity rather than losing it entirely while chasing an impossible 100% certainty.
Now, of course, it really helps to realize what kind of decision you're actually making. You have to distinguish between reversible and permanent decisions. If you work in digital marketing, for example, many of your decisions, like changing some pictures, adjusting prices, or tweaking text, are easily reversible almost instantly. Those things shouldn't trigger the same perfectionism and anxiety as highly consequential, permanent choices. Lower your expectations for those reversible ones, make the call, and just adjust as you go.
Which brings us to our fifth and final key idea. Number 5, use different perspectives.
When you make decisions with other people, you bring together entirely different natural strengths. Just imagine a scenario where the operations team looks at a plan and they immediately spot feasibility snags that the strategy team totally missed. And meanwhile, the customers are providing feedback that reveals underlying assumptions both internal teams completely overlooked. If a group is too like-minded, it just becomes an echo chamber. But by deliberately recruiting differing opinions, you catch those errors long before they happen.
So the crucial point here is achieving that 2 + 2 = 5 synergy. People really do elevate each other. When you combine different natural strengths like merging those highly analytical, logic-driven thinkers with the relationship-building, emotionally aware team members, you create a vastly more resilient decision. You are effectively using people's differences to build a complete, sturdy picture. All right, let's bring our narrative all the way back to that indecisive, exhausted team trapped in the conference room from the beginning of our explainer. They are no longer spinning their wheels. By understanding these 5 principles, we actually watch them break the paralysis. They clarify their authorities so they know for sure they can act. They prune the criteria to only what's relevant. They invite different perspectives to check their blind spots. And they accept that the final choice just isn't going to be flawless.
This gives them a really clear chronological sequence for action. 1. Define the immediate choice. 2. Gather only the relevant data. 3. Compare that data against agreed criteria. 4. Decide with 80% certainty. And 5. Learn from the outcome because they know they can always adjust course later. They've finally broken free of their loop and taken confident action.
Which leaves us with this final, vital question for you to ask yourself the very next time you find yourself scheduling just one more meeting to discuss an issue. Take a hard look at your hesitation and ask, are you improving the decision or simply delaying it?